Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the...
Put your guard down.
Put your guard down. What que diz? How do you have to...
Bring your guard down.
That's it.
That's
Bring
English.
it down.
I'm not English. I'm Italian. I get confused sometimes when I talk.
Anyway, yeah, so thanks for tuning in and listening. We have a special guest today. All our guests are special, actually. Special needs, some of them. Some are just generally special. You know what I mean? I think this guy here is a combination of both, special and special needs. Combination for the nation. All right, let's welcome Johnny V here. Hey, Johnny.
How you doing?
JV.
Hey, what's going on? Thanks for stopping in and appreciate
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Hey, if you like what you see here today or like what you hear today, tell your friends or click the subscribe button on any platform you're watching us on. We'd really appreciate it. Mikey's doing a great job. Hey, Mikey.
Mike's number one.
Mike's doing a great job.
Champion,
Our
Mike.
new
Yeah.
producer.
Good job, Mikey.
He's making these shorts, and I love them. Like, you know, little snapshots of our guests. Yeah, they call them shorts.
Shorts.
Well, it depends what platform.
Like Nike shorts or what kind of shorts?
They call them shorts on YouTube, reels on Facebook. What do they call them on Instagram?
I think reels on Instagram.
What is it called on Facebook?
I think it's Facebook
Shorts?
shorts as well.
Yeah.
So TikTok, YouTube shorts, and then reels.
What is TikTok called?
Just TikTok.
TikTok.
Yeah, because they're all shorts on TikTok, I guess. So,
Yeah.
TikTok.
Yeah, I used to eat those candy, the Tic Tac.
TikTok.
Yeah, that's...
They're nice. We got bad breath, you know.
Yes.
Bad breath?
I carry
Yeah,
a case in the car.
You got a case?
I carry a case.
Listen, Italian food nice, but sometimes I'm going to mental argue, the breath is going to be a little funky sometimes.
Speaking about bad breath, like, have you ever had an experience where you had some, you know, when you were younger, and you had like a girl and you're making out and she had bad breath?
Oh, no, that never happened to me.
No?
No, because...
What would you do if it happened to you?
If a girl have a bad breath?
Yeah, would you give her, you punch her in the ribs?
No,
What happened?
I'm not violent. I don't fight the girl. You're not supposed to hit her. That's ignorant. But if the girl, if she have a bad breath and she got a brother, I go his place. I smash him.
You beat the brother up.
Yeah.
That's good. Anyway, JV.
Yes, sir.
What do they call you? What's your nickname?
Johnny V. It's just Johnny.
Anybody has a nickname. Mine was Tanucci.
Why?
I don't know. They used to call me
That means
Tanucci.
yeah, because Italian, they short everybody, right? So if your name is a Tony, Antonio, they call him to Tony. Yes. And then Tonuccio means a little Tony. So when you're small, you're Tonuccio. Like
There must have been a bigger Tony where he grew up.
now he's a Tony.
They called him Tony.
So what? Yeah, a lot of they always still put Carmenucci. They put an uch. They put an uch at the end of it.
Endearment for the way.
Okay, so that,
Vituccio like me, Vituccio
Uch.
The color, it's color
Right.
has always had the Tonuccio.
Tonuccio, yeah.
Right?
Like a Rocco, Roccuzzo, you know, yeah, they say, yeah.
That's like
Cooch.
that.
My Cuccio.
Okay, so yeah, this is. I know you. You know, we have to kind of try to keep. We don't have like. We're gonna get there. We're gonna actually invest in new equipment so that we can get better and
Yeah,
better. New mics, maybe new cameras. Anyway, little by little,
It's
eh?
a great setup. By
Yeah, slowly got to. We already got a great mic over there.
Yeah, we have
The microphone is different for
microphone.
talking.
Hey, so you're born in Toronto, right?
Born in Toronto, yeah.
What part of-
Islington area?
My condolences.
Yeah. That used to be a nice area. Now it's all to shit.
It's a very nice area, but now it's gone to the shit.
Why? How come? What happened over there?
Most parts of Toronto become
Yeah,
shit now.
they're all ghettos now.
Well, what happens is everybody immigrates in the 50s, early 50s.
Yeah.
And then, you know, they make this whole life and they raise their children, and then they figure that the city's getting too violent, so they just go a little bit north, right? Maybe 5 or 6 lights, and then you end up north of Highway 7 eventually.
Oh, yeah.
So the guys that were in the east end up in Thornhill, Richmond Hill, right? Young Street area, Young Bathurst. And then from Bathurst, I'd say to Keele, end up in Maple.
Yeah.
And then from Jane to Islington, end up in Woodbridge.
And now they're leaving Woodbridge. They're going Kleinberg, Kleinberg, Innisville, Nobleton. Yeah.
You know what I heard one time? And then I read the article in the magazine, il giornale. I read that the Italian people, when they do immigration,
For the nation.
they go always
For the nation.
For the nation. They go, the Italian people, every city they go to northwest part. And I also heard when you have a poverty, that now don't have a lot of cash, they're going to go to the southeast. It's a funny dynamic if you make a consideration.
To the nation, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm not a geography specialist. You know, you're JVC, you know better than anybody, right? But
So you were born in Weston, yeah, and so you grew up there, and you.
Donovan, Razor, Ruddock, Paul Higgins, Mark Higgins.
So where did you go to?
they're famous.
Where did you?
Razor Ruddock grew up 2 streets over.
Oh,
Yeah.
Huh.
Flatley grew up at the same.
Oh, yeah, hockey.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
Pat
yeah.
Paul
Flatley.
Higgins played for the Leafs for a
Yeah,
week.
for a week,
For
yeah.
1 week,
He
yeah.
had
And,
about a week
and
there.
then he opened the bar.
Yes.
Did he?
I don't know.
Adam Graves, the Weston boy.
Oh,
Yeah.
Graves, he played for hockey Edmonton Oilers one
New York Rangers won a Stanley Cup.
time. Oh, you see?
Yeah,
We had a great area, nice area to grow up in.
yeah.
Age now, you know, there's the immigrants, all the immigrants come in the last 25, 30 years.
So, when you talk about the change, JVC, tell me now, what exactly do you notice the first 3 things that change for you from the time you live on there is Lindone, and now l'immigrante. You said the immigrant, they come in now, but when we come in there too, we was an immigrant at that time too. So what's the difference? Is there a difference between the kind of immigrant?
Well, I mean, listen, you know, like we grew up, the Italian stores were Galati Brothers,
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff, and now it's,
Yeah.
you know, Tao Pao, Pho, Market, Asian Market, and so many
Oh,
restaurants.
different people then.
So-
Pizza to
Yeah, you know it's
Albert's Roddy.
it's funny. They you know when we came.
And not that I have anything against
No, there's no. But here's the thing, right?
Graphically, everything has changed.
Yeah, and it's funny. Where I grew up at Yonge and Steeles area, you know, it's changed a lot. So I see the signage.
How?
Well, just signage. They're like, for example, Korean signs, right? They don't put any English. So they're basically pandering or promoting to their own. They don't want to assimilate, or they don't want people that understand their language, whether it's Korean or Arabic or whatever they put on their signs. They're not like the Italians, Nino D'Aversa Bakery, fine Italian food. You know, they didn't write it in Italian.
That's a good point.
They want it everybody.
Because everything now is in wherever they're from, right?
They don't want us to come and shop
Whether
there.
it's Eastern European or
Yep.
Asia,
It doesn't matter.
or Middle Eastern.
Yep.
You know what you call that? That's called virtue signaling. They're trying to tell their people something else. It seems like to me, if you're coming to a new country, Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, JVC, if you're coming to a new country, there's a la legge, the law, and the regulation for,
The nation, yes, I know.
right? You got the law, you have to follow. So why do you want to try and bring all your trouble from your country? Because you left your country because there must be some kind of strife, some kind of trouble. You come here and then you don't want to put English on the sign. You can put your name, Italian, Portuguese,
Yeah.
Polish, it doesn't matter. But you got to put English underneath too.
It's very simple, right? You look at why our folks left and came across the pond and started a new life.
Right, why?
Because c'era
I found
Yeah.
it's a hunger.
hungry. It was
Remember
hungry.
this one, Tony?
Yeah.
So now, why do all these other countries leave to come to North America?
It's okay they can come, but the point is they don't want. It looks like to me anyway. Like if I go where I grew up in that area, drive up and down Yonge Street from Steeles to Shepherd. One side is South Koreans, one side is Iranians. Go further north, it's Persian. Like it's like, but the signage you can't even. I wouldn't. You know what I mean? Like,
Don't you know what it is?
so they don't.
Yeah.
They just don't want us around, I guess, or don't want people other than them shopping. Anyway, that's another discussion. But so you. You know what did you guys do for fun back in your days, like as a young guy, what did you finish school, like tell me your story as a teenager going into.
As a teenager, you know, big family, 5 boys, 1 girl. My dad, you know, mom raised all the kids. My dad worked at Safeway, produce manager back in the 70s and 80s, and just out of la fame. We were hungry.
It's a tough, yeah.
So aside from my sister, who passed now, it's been 6 months, she graduated, all of us didn't graduate.
Rest in peace.
Dad used to go and sell vegetables on the side of the highway with Santa Pusateri back in the
Yeah, I
70s.
remember Sam Pusateri had a supermarket on St. Clair.
That's right.
I
Yeah.
can tell you a couple of stories about that. Another time.
Which has now become the Pusateris of today.
Famous.
So
Frank took it over, right?
Sammy
Yeah.
hired my dad and my oldest brother Frankie to go sell produce at Highway 10.
Le verdure.
Yes.
So,
Wow.
produce, let's clarify produce.
Produce.
So just produce and no fruit.
No, well, yeah, there's some fruit.
Some fruit to mix them up.
Be part of the fruit.
Okay, so let's talk produce. So, tomato, you're gonna call that the produce. It's a produce. I pomodori. And then l'insalate.
Yes.
And then green beans maybe. Le fagiolini, che cose rare, right?
That's crazy. So they would set up. Sorry,
Right.
they would set up shop on the side of the street. That's crazy.
And then hopple is very famous in Canada, Ontario. The hopple.
Apple pie.
Apple pie, yeah.
Almost like humble pie.
A humble pie's a group. I remember rock and roll. Okay, so hopple.
That's what the Leafs are going to eat after this weekend. Sorry, go ahead. I digress. So
We're
you
gonna touch on the leaves too.
yeah, maybe. So you guys.
Sal verdura, okay.
Sold vegetables
From
on
the
side
truck.
highway, from the truck with Sammy. He paid in cash to make some extra money. So never really. School wasn't as
A priority for you.
prioritized as it is today.
Okay.
So when you're young and you get out and you start making a little bit of money, right, and your buddies still have empty pockets, you say, man, this is the route I want to go. Which I would push now. My kids obviously they're in university and stuff, but back in the '70s, you were helping the family, right? You'd make a little bit of money, you'd be able to contribute a little bit, right? So, yeah, none of us graduated anyway. My sister graduated. We never graduated.
So sorry about the fruit. Did you ever work with the fruit? Did you ever go work there?
I was 16 years younger than Frankie. Right?
Oh, okay.
So when Frankie was 16, 17, I was 2 or 3.
Right. So you never actually got a chance to experience what.
16 younger, he was a 16 and you were 2 or 3, so
Well,
you weren't very good at mathematica when you, that's why you didn't go to school, I figured.
Yeah, no kidding.
When he was 16, I was just born.
Right.
So when he was 18, I would have been 2.
Okay.
There was no way I was going to go sell vegetables.
Right.
No, you can't. 2 years old, can you imagine a bag of potatoes on your back?
Yeah.
You just tall? No, it's
Well, they do that now on the street. There's a lady with a 2-year-old begging in Toronto. That's it. They make it. We didn't do that kind of. We didn't exploit our children.
They showed something not on George Watch the other day where they park behind the Esso gas station. And then these 2 ladies get up and get dressed. They walk to Western Road and Highway 7.
Oh, yeah.
And they peddle cash. So now they're being investigated.
Yeah, sure.
They have to investigate a lot of people are migrant over here. Even at the subway over there, they collect their money from the taxpayer money.
Cash.
Not to digress. They get the check from the Canadian government, then they beg him for money too.
I'll tell you something. About 3 years ago, I was at the bank during COVID. Only let a few people in. And I went in and there was a lady in there. And she must have been Somalian or something. And I knew the girl behind the cash, or behind the counter there. And she said this lady comes in once a month with a $5,800 government check. $5,800, she has 6 kids. So I guess her money and whatever money they give her for the children,
Shopping.
$5,800 government check.
No kidding.
every month.
Anyway.
And her rent was paid.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that means that where they used to live.
Somebody's getting screwed.
Yeah.
Well, that also means that the place where they come from, wherever she come from, if Somalia, those kind of place, they're not third world, they're 30th world.
30th.
So those people have nothing but the political strife and trouble in those country, and then they come here, they're in the lap of luxury, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Cash, feed I understand the kids have got to eat the food, but the criminal over there, really, if you think about it.
That's the other thing, is, I have one of my controllers for one of my companies is Indian, and he's been with me 24 years, and he says to me, the problem with Canada is you guys are getting all the influx of people that we didn't want in our country.
Yeah.
That's
So
true.
it's not like they're coming here with degrees and something to offer.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a whole different.
Again, and I'm sure there's, in every country we have different people. I mean, we have bad people in Italy, we have bad people in China, we have bad people in Portugal, we have bad people everywhere.
Okay, listen, before we even continue, right now, both you guys, JVC and TC,
Yeah.
okay? Let's get one thing straight, okay, in this podcast today. The migration problem is not the people's problem. The migration problem created by every government, okay? It's not a coincidence every place having the same kind of trouble. I told you last podcast, when I go to Poland, I want to see Polish people.
Sure.
You come to Italy, you see Italian people. When I go to India, if I want to go there, I see Indian people. This migration situation is no good. It's NFG. It's not working because this country, especially when we live in North America, it's based on the principle of Judeo-Christian value. The
Sure.
Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights in Canada. Let's everybody wake up, okay? These people bring trouble from their country. They bring the same lifestyle.
I mean, they're not. It's too late, but they're not all bad. I mean, they're. But it's not the point. The point is that
It's gotten out of control.
it's got out of control. So you back to your kind of journey, because we really want to hear your journey, because it's a pretty amazing journey, and what I think anyway. And I'm proud of I really respect people that build businesses and build and hire people and create jobs and have fun along the way. That's what it's all about, right? So anyway, so you were as a teenager growing up, you guys were a big family, struggling, and
Yeah, it was tough, like when income for 7 people or 8 people in the house with a mortgage and trying to have a vehicle to take these kids, and then certain kids were able to do certain sports and just couldn't afford for the rest of the kids to do it. So I kind of looked at the whole deal, and I'm sitting at the table one night and I'm watching all my brothers talk and taking all this in, and I said, hey, I'm not fucking doing this. Like, I'm just not doing this. Like, I don't need fucking school, which I would never tell my kids.
well, you are now.
And most kids, like us guys, we literally did grow up on the streets because I remember taking the bus from Finch, Islington down to fucking Ontario Place because my buddies who were 2 or 3 years older went earlier, and I'm telling my mom, I gotta go there, I gotta go see my friends. Right here I am, 11 years old, getting on a fucking bus to Young Station and Young down to fucking wherever it was.
Yeah.
And just making my way and finding it in Ontario. Where if my kid was 11 or 12 years old,
Are you kidding?
He'd have his mom's hand in his hand and looking for his sister, like, and
Have their phone on their pocket and
no fucking way.
But plus, now, stealing the children is a big business all over the world.
yeah, it's
We know
true
this
too.
one,
Kidnapping and child. That's a scary proposition too, though.
Children of today could have like a 3-minute conversation with each other because it's just all TikTok and
The phone.
Yeah.
bullshit.
And so, okay, so good. So you didn't finish. You went to school, but you kind of dropped out. Yeah. So what did you do when you dropped out? Like what?
So my brother Tony had a little construction company. I used to go help him a few days a week. But then working with brothers, right? And just the youngest brother especially, just total abuse.
Yeah, sure.
But, this is not working out. I said, So exactly, Palati. So I was old enough to get my driver's license and.
How old do you got a driver's license? Seven?
16.
Oh, 16.
Yeah.
Did you actually pass the test, or did you have
I
to?
had to go 3 times.
So when I got my license, the guy goes, "Go
One
to."
time I was fucking smoking. Like the first time I had I was back in fucking 1982 or 83. I had a fucking butt going. The guy's looking at me and started writing. What the fuck's this guy writing?
Yeah.
And of course, hey, you got one hand on the console.
Yeah, you think? Forget about 2 and 10 or 3.
How's your day going? He's looking at me, go, what the fuck? Anyway, I had to go back 3 times finally. And then I bought a little truck, and then just my buddy said, hey, I got some work for you. And I went over and he had some glass and some glass work. And I'm thinking, fuck, this glass work, this could work, And then I just bought a truck and then bought another truck and then hired a couple people.
So what were you doing? What do you mean? What kind of business?
Service work. So you drive up and down St. Clair, Dufferin, and people, the storefront glass would be broken. So
So you're working with glass.
Oh, yeah.
So who got you started in the glass? Like who introduced you to that business?
My buddy who asked me to fix a couple things around his house, and then a lot of the stuff was broken glass. So I look around, going, every fucking house or structure has a piece of glass in it. This could be good.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Smart. Yeah. So you're kind of forward thinking.
When I was 18, registered the corporation at 21. Cool. And then there was a funny story. Neighbor 2 doors down had this little pickup truck that he wasn't using for a while. I don't know if I told you the story before.
No, you can tell it again.
1950 $100 bill my nonna gave me. She had and Tony, my grandmother. So she gave me this $100 bill, and I was, I don't know, fucking 19, 20. Put it away in a safe place. And I went down and seen Ennio, and I said, hey, Ennio, I could really use your truck. He said, well, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm going to put a rack on it, and I'm going to go fix people's glass. I'm going to start a service thing back in 85 or 86. So he says, well, give me $300 for this truck, right?
For the truck?
Yeah.
The whole truck?
The whole fucking truck.
Oy.
Tires and everything.
Uy, puro con el ruedo.
So I said, he says, give me $300. So I thought, I said, well, I want to ask my mom for any money. So I said, well, I got that $100 bill that I'm hoping to hang on to. I said, give him that, and maybe he'll give me a finance for a few weeks till I can get a couple hundred, right? So I run home and I grab this $100 bill and I got it nice pressed and I got it in this little plastic sleeve. And I said, here's $100. I said, I'll be back in the next 2 or 3 weeks with the other 200. He says, I'll tell you what, he goes, I'm not even going to change it over to your name yet because I don't want you to pay the insurance and all this stuff. You can drive it under my name, which is really nice.
Oh, it's nice, yeah.
So anyway, I went back after about, I think it was about a month later, I went back with the rest of the cash and I gave him I said to him, I said, please, if you don't have to spend this $100 bill, it means a lot to me, like if you can keep it, right? So I went back with the cash and he gave me the $100 bill back and I gave him $300. And, so I still have the $100 bill today, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Grandmother give you.
Yeah, that's cool. You got a
$100 bill today. It's worth what? $40?
Yeah,
maybe
$6.
10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's it. I mean, I started working with bigger companies, and then I bought a factory, and then
So, but did you where
process. But you don't really notice it. I don't think I noticed the progression of the corporation till, I want to say 15 to 20 years in, because at the time, you're down, you're focused, you're running, you're just doing deals, you're trying to do deals, you're thinking, okay, I'll work for this guy because he pays better than that guy.
Yeah.
And then by all that, all that's going on, you meet all these owner-developer guys that I've known for years now, almost 40 years. And, I really didn't notice what situation I was in until 20 years in.
So would you say I think the key to success is not only having a good product, being a great salesman, right?
Absolutely.
So, and I think
You don't have to get to the gab, I don't care what.
So exactly. So that's kind of something that, you could have a great idea and have a great business, but you got to be able to sell yourself, right?
Well,
And
you're also selling yourself and your product. And I think all these guys, like the guys that we work for are all very successful owner developers here in the city and GT area with a ton of properties, with a ton of money, and they did all. So for them, it's more word, like your word is everything. If you say you're gonna be there Tuesday at 3 o'clock, if you're there Wednesday at 4, it's not gonna work with them.
Right.
And that's how I kind of had probably more people on staff than I needed for a bunch of years, just to make sure the service was there for the repetition of the business. Like I haven't got an ad in 40 years of business, 36 years of business.
right.
That's where you got
So-
business, yeah.
So sort of tactically, because people listen here, always get inspired by stories, right? So tactically, how would you develop relationships with sort of your biggest clients? Like what was kind of, because they be, you got to wine and dine, you got to do this, you got to be personable, they got to like you, all of these kind of.
I think well, we've been a long time, and I think I'm usually upbeat and pretty happy, trying to make jokes and fill the room with more smiles than grins.
That's
Yeah.
And I've been like that all my life, and I think my persistency in going in to see these people when they see this young kid show up, with boots and lumber jacket, and I just came from the site. Here's my quotation. It's probably wrinkled and coffee stains on it, but this is what I have.
That's nice,
And I
yeah.
think they seen the
Dedication.
dedication
For the nation.
genuine was back in the late 80s and early 90s, where they said, hey, we remember starting like that too. I had a great relationship with a lot of the big developers, and again, I want to just stress that the people that I met along the way are colleagues, but my childhood friends are still like my brothers. And I still see the guys that work 9 to 5, and some guys don't work, and some guys got the shittier end of the stick, and I still consider them my closest friends, where we skinned our knees together, and we threw stones in the water together, and we probably stole tomatoes out of Luigi's backyard a bunch of times with the cucumbers.
Yeah.
Those are my dear friends.
Was that you?
That was probably
my
your
dad.
backyard a couple times.
Yeah, my dad said, my tomatoes are missing.
The important thing is to and it's probably an old cliche, but you need to just stay with your roots. And I think if you stay focused to one thing and not jump around and try and get into too many different things, I think that's, for me, was the key to success, and not jumping around when I had opportunities. I mean, I did land deals and stuff like that you get into, obviously, because you're with the developer guys, but I think you just stick to what you know.
Well, it's true, right? You chase 2 rabbits, you catch nothing. That's it. That's how they, remember that.
Especially if one rabbit goes that way.
That's my
another rabbit
point.
Goes that way.
If they're both-
then you're gonna catch two couple of meat.
Yeah, if they're going this, maybe you can catch them both, but that's very rare. So what's glass. So what's the biggest project you did in your business? Like what's the biggest, you don't have to name the company or anything, but just,
We're on an $11 million project now, one project in the Markham area.
Is it a condo, office building, or yeah,
$11 million?
yeah?
Can you
That's a lot of windows, eh?
It's a lot of windows, yeah.
It's a lot of windows.
JVC, can you spot me $50?
Absolutely. As soon as the cameras are off, I give you a brown.
I'll give you a brownie. Yeah, oh yeah, give her the one, but you can't spend it. You got to give it back. You got to give it back. That's a good luck charm.
It is kind of humbling because I remember me getting back in the 80s, late 80s, you get a $1,000 job. I used to do, how it mostly started, after I was rolling, I had the privilege of meeting Benjamin Reitman, who's owned First Canadian Place and Manulife Center and all these other towers downtown, and he said to me, he says, if you work with me, you're going to do okay. And I said, okay, so I took him for what it was worth. And I always wanted to go with my buddies to the bars and Rocco. Well, heaven was happening back then, the gasworks, all these places. So I go dressed up with my Sancho cowboy boots and all this other cool stuff, right? And then underneath it all, I would have, my work stuff, right? So I'd go to Rock and Roll Heaven until 9, 9:30, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. And then we started at First Canadian Place at midnight. And what we would do, we'd go in and fix all the big sliding glass doors for all the mall fronts.
Whoa.
So we'd go in and I'd service all the doors for them.
That's a big contract, eh?
Back in 1988, 89.
Big money, eh?
Yeah, it was pretty good, right? You get a couple of G's at the end of the week as a kid, right?
That's cool.
So how did you balance, because you're a partier, we all like to party, we have fun, but how did you balance having a good time with responsibility of work?
That's the ancient Chinese secret.
Well,
right?
That's...
So here's the truth of the matter is I didn't start drinking alcohol until I was 30. So I never had a drink. I smoked, I think I smoked a joint at 14 and I got so sick I thought I was going to get schizophrenia or something. It was really weird.
Yeah.
I was going to go check into the hospital. So I talked to my brother Tony about it. He said, hey, listen, there's two things. Either you can take la mala strada or you can just stay on the straight, right?
Camina dirita, they used to say, fly straight.
Right? Because my brother, he didn't speak the language, but he was always at work. So my brothers were kind of molded me a little bit, tried to keep me on the path and stuff. But
so Malastrada, that's a bad road.
That's a bad road.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think not drinking for and my buddies were always partying and saying, hey, let's go down to Superstars at the time, or Rentex and all these places.
Yeah.
I'd love to cut that. You got to fix Mr. Reichman's fucking doors, right?
Right, and that to me is like I had lots of friends very similar, right? They totally come and party, party. Yeah, man. I had to work.
I don't think Mr. Dezen was out drinking beers at fucking Indian Motorcycle Cafe.
Yeah, I don't think so. Maybe his sons were, but not him. Yeah. Not him. He was. He still is. He's.
Not that I'm comparing myself to that, but I think a little bit of everything from successful guys. It kind of gives you a better structure on what you.
He's. I have a lot of respect for that guy. And then I was at a charity poker game, and it was him and I hit he didn't know really. I mean, he knew me, but because we had a mutual friend, a guy named Archie Zuliani, and we were at a poker. I never played. Yeah. I never had too bad he wasn't around because he'd be here. He would be the most interesting guy we'd ever talk to. But and him and I were I never played in a poker tournament in my life, and it was like it started with 200 people. And it was just him and I, the final two at the final table. And anyway, I ended up winning the tournament. He got pissed. He had to do 2 more buy-ins because he had to beat me, but that was it. Limit. I won the tournament. I gave all the money back I didn't take any of it. I just said, I donated it to the charity, but he was a very competitive guy. Very competitive guy.
About Mr. Dazan again?
Yes.
He's famous, right?
Oh, yeah. Very famous.
I with my father too long time.
Yeah. I used to fly back and forth to St. Kitts on his plane with him and stuff. And anyway, so you have to balance, having fun and
one or the other. It's like a good musician, right? Like my buddy Lawrence Falconer, he's a great guitar player. Phil Exenius, we grew up with all these great guitar players, and Dean Maslin, Sil Simone. Yourself back in the day as a drummer, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, if you don't master,
not Rocco, but his friend Vito.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Your buddy Vito. Yeah, these guys kind of look the same.
Kind of look here. Handsome, both.
Very handsome.
In general, I think you have to master your craft in anything you do.
Absolutely.
Right? And if you don't work at it, and if you don't work at a business, it's no different than music.
Yeah, it's a commitment. Yeah.
Soccer, or my son, or your kids in hockey. You have to master your craft.
Yeah, there's an old saying, remember? I heard a couple nice things. One guy said that success leaves clues.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's a very important one, right?
Yeah, follow the clues.
So, and then sometimes if you think about even the great sportsmen, they teach you a lot of stuff about the life too, right? They're like a business. Like Vince Lombardi, the coach of the Green Bay Packers, he used to say a couple of nice, very interesting things. I follow. That's why I see people like you, Tony, successful people. They must use this kind of philosophy, whether they know it or not. Because Vince Lombardi said, perfect practice does not make, is the only thing that makes it perfect is perfect practice. Practice doesn't make it perfect. And the second thing I remember he said is...
Perfect practice, yes.
Right.
Totally agree. Yeah.
The second thing he said is fatigue makes a coward of any man. Mm-hmm. So when you're not in shape, you're going to be a chicken, you're scared.
Mm-hmm.
Now you go apply that to sport. You got to do extra 10 push-up, you do it. Business too, you got to go the extra 40 miles for the contract at 2 o'clock in the morning, do it. Because it's going to be good for you. What do you think? Right? DVC?
It's so, listen, it's so important that people think, you're an overnight success. Like, overnight success.
Yeah.
They think
for the last 30 years.
Yeah, they think, holy shit! It's like overnight success just because you learned about the success, a month ago. You don't realize the work people or successful people put in to get there. Like, it's a commitment, time, sacrifice, and you know what? If you want to make it at anything, and anything is possible, even today with all this, you just have to do it and commit and put the work, and don't get distracted with partying and having fun. You can balance. That's why I asked you, how did you balance it? Because, I like to have fun. I like to do things and go out and
I love to party.
I wasn't really a heavy partier, but I'd like to do things that have fun.
Time, I was probably 15 years in before I really
because
having a good time.
And I think it's important to balance things. But weren't you involved in some sort of early days of these 900 numbers or something? Tell us that story. Because people don't know what this was. Maybe you can explain what the whole thing was.
1-900 hot 1-800 was all this whole thing that came up from 86 to about 2000.
This pre-internet,
Pre-internet stuff.
Yeah.
Phone sex and all this kind of stuff. So I finally saved up enough money to buy a place in Florida in 1987, and going down there every couple of months, I met this guy, Ken Tataro, very, very dear friend of mine until today. And he was in the 1-800 hot numbers. And I'm looking at this guy and I'm thinking, like, how does anybody else make money if they're not in construction? Because I'm make money in construction. What do you mean you get on the phone, you talk to somebody at $3.99 US a minute, you make millions of dollars? How does that work? So I was sitting on the beach and I met him on the beach, and he pulls up with this beautiful, back then it was a 89 Lotus Esprit red. Like, they're really nice little Lotuses back then. And this guy jumps out and he's just like vibrant and happy and smiling, and he's got these beautiful women beside him. And so I'm on the beach with my buddy Joe Lima strumming a guitar in Clearwater, Florida, going, well, this is got to be more to it. Like, what's this guy do? So, we were pretty cool looking dudes back in there. We had the long hair, we were in good shape, and I guess he kind of looked over and we waved, and because he had the girls, and we had nothing but a ham sandwich on the beach. So,
and a poodle.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he came over and we chatted a little bit. We became good buddies, and
so you just this is a random encounter. And who approached who? Who approached who?
88. We had a guitar, so he was kind of like this old kind of, he was about 10 years older than me at the time, so he was kind of like this rock and roll guy with the whole rock and roll scene. And if you grew up in the 80s, if you weren't into rock and roll, you were relevant, right? Pretty much, like the whole hairbag days.
Yeah, sure.
Got to be rock and roll.
Rock and roll.
That's what I tell everybody.
That's what it is.
So
Famous.
He came over, we chatted a little bit. He's, where are you from? I said, well, we're from Toronto, and you? He's from Chicago, Italian, German descent. His parents, his mom was Italian, his dad was German, and we got into chat a little bit, and we became good buddies for 10 years before, or probably 8-9 years before we did anything together. So fast forward 1994, I get a phone call from Ken, and he says, hey, I think I want to, and back in those days, he said to me, we're going to do business in Canada one day together. I said, okay, yeah, that'd be fun, whatever you want to do, I'm there, And fast forward now, in 94, I get a phone call, and he says, hey, do you want to fly in and meet with me and a couple of partners? We want to talk to you about an idea we came up with. And
so up to that point, what was your relationship like? Were you just...
Well, every time I went to Florida, Florida. He'd come down.
So was it like just friends, like hanging out? Yeah, it wasn't. You didn't really talk business. Just one day he called you and said, "Hey."
He said we were going to do business.
Okay, right.
And so I get a phone call in 1994, and I went down and I met with. He invited me down. He said, "We want to fly you down. We meet these two guys I'm doing business with, and we want to expand into Canada, to Toronto." I said, "Wow, that's okay. When are you going to come down?" Anyway, I flew down like a week later, and we went to the steakhouse, and we're sitting there, and I'm like, what could he possibly want to do, this guy? And he was making $8,000 a day net back in '88. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of cash.
Cash money.
So, and he says, hey, we want to open up the phone sex operation in Toronto.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, this could be fucking good, right? Moving on up, trying to get a piece of the pie, right?
Oh, yeah, the Jeffersons.
Yeah. So, and my window company was going well at the time. Like I said, I probably had, 40, 50 people back in 95 or whatever it was, 94. So I thought, do I really need this headache? And then we started going over the numbers and how it all kind of made sense. I said, yeah, I need this headache too. Because now that I had all these people, I had 35, 40 people working, it gave me a little more time during the day to try and branch out. Not too far, but this was way fucking far. From windows to fucking sex lines, right? So anyway, I laid it out to them. I said, hey, listen, we want you to be the president because we, instead of paying like a 48% fucking tax, we'll pay like 14 as...
That's a big difference, yeah.
I'm doing the numbers in my head, right? And I'm thinking, fuck, I'm saving these guys 35 points. Whatever they do at the end of the year, because I had no idea about this business. I had no knowledge about it. I knew nothing about it. Anyway, we set up. They came in. We set up. We were with Oxford Properties, right behind the Royal York Hotel. We had 18,000 square foot facility, and I had within the first year of setting up and getting everything going, I had 131 girls working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this. So you had this big office facility. Huge. What did it look like? What was it like? Desks, all full like workstations.
Desks, workstations.
Right.
Like a 4x5 cubicle.
Right.
And all these girls in one area, and then there's a podium at the front where the manager sits. And
but the girls are the girls, are they dressed up or they naked?
No, they're totally dressed.
Oh, they're dressed. Okay.
So, but this is yeah.
You said phone sex. I thought maybe the guy's going to put his hand in the telephone and going to touch something.
No. So hold on.
I don't know.
So get a visualization of this is massive, just little booths, right, and women working these booths with a headset or a phone of some sort.
Phones.
Yeah, regular phones. Yeah.
Some girls were so good that they would use 2 phones and have 2 customers at the same time.
No
they
kidding.
talk to 2 different people, 1 girl. That's a menage a trois. That's
it.
Holy smoke. That's
but,
exciting, eh? Not for me. I'm happily married.
But on the phone. So this, I'm trying to picture this. So it's massive place, 18,000 square feet with 130 girls sitting in booths, answering, talking to customers.
So the phone switch was here in Toronto, but all our calls were U.S. calls.
Right. So they were routed.
Long distance with Bell Canada, then they deal with their carriers.
Right.
Okay, that's a fine and dandy, JVC. But now my curiosity is to wake up a little bit. Give me an example of when she's talking to somebody. What's she going to say to this person? Like she's talking to Rocco. Hi, my name is Rocco. Who are you talking to? And she said, my name is Chantel. Okay, Chantel.
Tiffany.
Tiffany.
So the girls, our girls, because the CRTC would listen in randomly. They would come in and listen to.
Oh, they do that too. Oh, that's a government people.
Jeez.
So
they pay for that?
Well, I don't know.
Or for free, they listen.
They come in and they can pick up. So we had a switch at the front where the supervisor sat. And she could, booths are numbered, so she could, booth 47, she could listen into the call.
Right.
It was required by the CRTC. We were not to initiate
the calls.
No, we were not to initiate the sex talk.
Right.
Oh,
okay.
It had to be
the customer. So you could. Okay.
We had one guy who was spending $15,000 US a month out of Alabama.
Okay, so if I call, let's say, I give an example.
That guy's been really only
for sure.
Well,
so I'm Rocco. I pick up the phone. I go, hello, this is Rocco, who are you? She said, I'm Chantel. Yes. And if I say, listen, exactly. I needed some special drywall for my basement, so the conversation going to stay over there. What if Rocco, me, I say, hey, Chantel, navitili pomodori nice, you got nice tomatoes. She might think it's a produce. Because the tomatoes are produce. How about if I say, Chantel, come stanno le mini? Now we're talking sex, guaranteed.
Oh.
It was wide open. You could do whatever you
So
want.
if the caller initiated, hey, how what are you wearing today? Yeah, whatever.
But this is what I asked you earlier. You didn't tell me the truth. I told you they dressed or they naked. You said they dressed.
Yeah.
What if Rocco said, what do you got on?
They pretend.
They're going to play it off.
They're going to pretend.
So she's going to pretend, I got a tongue on and nothing else
Yes.
You know what I learned during those years? Is there's a lot of lonely people.
Oh, you can. Those years.
on. Very good point.
Right? Like a lot of lonely people. And to them, that person that they were on the other phone with,
So,
the other line with,
Everything.
became a friend.
so could they? Would they be able to call back and say, "Can I speak to?" Is that how it would work, or how do you get the same person back?
Well, they would go through the phone switch. And
Yeah.
They had an extension. Right?
Okay, and then how would
booth had an extension.
how would they know which girl how often they were on shift or?
Girl's on the phone because she makes money out.
So she'd
Girls
say,
got paid a salary
Right.
plus hold times, which means whoever had the most minutes, billable minutes for us, would get a portion of that.
bonus.
What about if you call? What about if I call back?
Here we go.
And I ask for Chantel. And then I realized
Mind you,
Aspetta un poco.
Chantel's in the room.
Yeah, no
That's
kidding.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's it.
20 Chantel. Then I find out that the Chantel I want to talk to, she's 350 pounds and it's a man with a high voice.
Yeah, but-
non have le cogliona.
How do
This
you-
is going to
no,
be very
that's-
depression for me.
But that never happened. You never. They were.
You never know that.
You never know
We're not
that.
gonna know.
No,
Sure.
because there's
they
no
can't come to
camera.
the office, right?
No, you can't.
You can't come over there.
No.
They have the building a Royal York Hotel in the back.
Yeah.
So it's shut down, locked. Security.
Yeah.
So you can't go over there. Oh, hey, I'm Rocco. I want to see my girl Chantel. They say, "Va pigati l'anculo va tenete
They
right?"
didn't know where we were.
Am I right,
Yeah.
JVC?
You're 100% right. You know, Oxford, I don't know if I should say that, but anyways, the management company who manages a lot of those towers downtown.
Yeah.
We didn't tell them it was a sex line opportunity. We told them it was a long distance switch, so we would answer long distance.
Wow, and they just turned a blind eye as long as the rent was being paid on time.
Well,
So
that's-
here we are. Let me tell you what happened at the end. So,
Okay, let's just we're gonna get to the end, but
let me navigate you through this.
yes, because to me, so the timeline. So you from the time you got the green light to do this thing and rent the office, and then how long did it take where did you find these 130 girls? Like how did you recruit
Build
them?
up the unit.
Yeah.
We were interviewing, and a lot of them were
Acting.
Okay, but how did you reach them? Ads in the paper? Or,
That's like underground magazines.
and what would it say?
Yeah.
What,
Yeah.
what would an ad look like?
Looking for phone switch operator.
What do you mean phone switch? You would say
gotta
phone
put-
sex?
Call and ask, and then we say yeah.
You don't say it's a sex line. You just say phone switch operator for some marketing company. Or, okay.
The
We
chef.
had girls on hold, ready to come work because back in those days they were making $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 a week.
Let me ask you one more question.
A lot of money
about
for a local person.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question about the audition for the girl, right? Sometimes, Rocco Rompamuro, famous all over the world, right? So sometimes they call me up to do movie part, I'm a famous actor too. But when you audition this girl, sometimes the casting director, she has a very special, she do the video of you, not just your profile and your face, but your sound of your voice, because the sound is very important. If you sound like this, my name is Chantel, you got to get out.
So there was a selection process, right? Who would do the selection who would set the criteria for that?
This lady Joanne, who ran the operations in St. Petersburg, Florida, came up here and worked here for a year until she hired somebody, got it going. She initially started everything.
Famous.
And believe it or not, these girls, when they, we've probably done it 200 times growing up, but when you kind of put yourself into a situation you're thrown into. So these women, the voices also got a lot sexier as the phone calls came in, right?
Oh.
And they knew how to just kind of sneak right in there and climb.
Well, they're specialized. The women control the men.
How many
eh?
times have you been on the phone with with a girl growing up, and you sound one way, and as soon as you get on the phone with a girl, you sound like like fucking Fred Astaire, right? Like
No, exactly.
Frank Sinatra.
No, listen, I didn't marry my
If
wife.
I talked to him like I was at the factory, you'd be like, "What the fuck? Who is this? What do you want?"
No, listen, sometimes you don't realize, depends on what a man needs for a life. Like you said, loneliness. When I meet my wife, I talked to her phone the first time. She told me, "Portolo formaggio la casa." I said, "I'm going to marry this girl. That's it."
As soon as you heard that,
Bring the cheese home. I'm going to be
It's
ready.
like so you would hire these girls and you would interview them. They would talk dirty for hours, and then sort of kind of built up the business, and you had thousands of callers coming in.
We're there in the U.S. looking after the U.S. stuff, and my good buddy now, who was one of my partners, Dan Johnson, he would fly up every.
Don Johnson from Miami Vice.
No,
Close, Dan, not Don.
Oh,
No.
Danny, yeah.
Second cousin.
yeah,
Oh, geez.
and his partner was named, I think, Betty Crocker. She did do baking stuff. Yeah, that was his partner. Yeah. Anyway,
So the operation grew, and we were there. So anyway, the CRTC was a big part of.
but they knew what was going on.
Yeah.
They knew what.
They knew what was going on.
The CRTC, which is the government regulation, basically choke everybody
Censorship.
here. Censorship. So
we were doing good. Like we were giving Bell Canada, I think, between 350 and 400,000 a month just in long distance.
a lot of money back then. So how
We
did?
hired a lot of people. We employed a lot of people.
Yeah, and so what was kind of like what was this sort of the apex of it? So when it was really humming.
The first 14 months, we invoiced $29 million in 14 months.
Massive. And what percentage of that went back to the girls, or would you say, or the operators? Was it a big percentage of it, or?
Let's say she had, 1,000 billable minutes at the end of the week, right? And at $4 a minute, that'd be $4,000. So she'd make herself.
So, and as a percentage of your total gross, like, would you say 50% went to them, 40, like?
I'd probably say between 15 and 20.
Oh, so it's a high margin.
Based on salary.
Right.
A good salary.
So it's a high margin business.
Absolutely.
Okay, but one question, I confused it. How many girls have a beautiful, sexy voice, but they're not beautiful?
Percentage-wise?
Yeah.
Probably 60%.
That's my whole story. That's why my wife is a 6'3", 295.
Yeah.
That's it.
But anyway,
You don't have to worry about it.
you don't have to worry. But today, forget about it. Now you have, it's,
Yes, though.
the whole-
There were some girls that were like really, really beautiful girls.
sure.
I believe
Well, of course. So then you're at the peak of it, because everything, it is a sad story, but everything always comes to an end.
Right.
It always does.
The
Something,
thing was, we were doing great numbers.
you piss somebody off for sure.
Giving us like gold, giving us their box down here,
Yeah.
taking us over there to watch
Wow.
games and
Yeah.
all this other kind of stuff. Then,
Somebody got pissed off.
yeah.
That's
So-
always a jealous
So I was
envy.
going back between the window company and that. So Fridays I would go down to the office, sign payroll, and make sure the taxes were getting paid and all this other stuff. That wasn't going to leave me open to anything, should something happen. So I was down there Friday, and when like every Friday, I'd pull up and I'd go underground and park, and I'd take the elevator up to our 16th floor, or whatever the hell it was. And so while I'm driving down there, this girl calls me. She says, "Hey, you got to get down here. We have some serious problems." What could be the problem?
So you talk about this being out of the blue. You had no foreknotice, no warning. Okay. Mm-hmm.
So the process was this Joanne lady, who was the manager of the place, she would hire new girls all the time. And some girls fell off, some girls come on.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, there was two girls. I don't know if you remember Thelma and Louise.
Yeah.
Remember the movie?
RCMP.
Do you remember Thelma and Louise?
Yeah, the movie, yeah. Gina Davis.
Yes.
And
So-
Susan Sarandon.
So
yeah.
what
And
happened-
Brad Pitt.
So what happened here was these two girls, and then you'll probably remember the real life Thelma and Louise, made it across the border to Canada.
Right.
That's right.
Came into Toronto.
That's right.
And they were hired by Unican Communications, my company.
Yeah, they hired.
So
I
let's
had no idea.
hold on. So let Thelma and Louise. Do you know their backstory? Do you know what?
I knew they were out of.
What were they doing? Crime? What were they stealing?
Yes, so they would drive to the U.S. and rob banks.
rob banks.
Mariuli.
So they're kind of like the Bonnie and Clyde.
A month, and they couldn't catch these.
Yeah, so they're kind of like the current day or modern day Bonnie and Clyde. They would rob
So Bonnie
banks,
and
Bonnie and Bonnie, or Bonnie and Claudette, and they would rob banks and steal, and they were like really gangsters, right? At the end of the day, okay, so they make their way up.
Make up their way up
To Canada.
These magazines, now magazines. Hey, we can hide out here for a while.
Yeah.
You can, like,
Smart, huh?
Wow, cool.
So they go in, they get hired. I had no knowledge of it until that day.
So they're working for you, these two gangster bank
While they're being
robbers.
watched by the feds from
Sure.
the side and from our side.
So
So now there's, there's no more of this phone switch long distance operation that's going on here. Now, because they're tapping in and they're listening, they're following these two.
yeah, wow,
They get the whole spiel on what we're doing.
wow,
And
that's
I'll never
crazy.
forget Andy, the Portuguese maintenance guy for the building, he used to say, it doesn't seem like a long distance operation. Andy, that's all it is. It's all good, right? The nicest guy.
Sure.
So anyway, that morning, I get that phone call and I go in and it's mayhem. There's fucking U.S. feds.
And they have a RCMP. You know
So-
what that stands for, RCMP? Royal Cafone Mounted Pecorini.
That's it. Melted pigs. But anyway, so these girls are working for you. They're wanted felons, criminals, and they're working in Canada illegally. You hired them, not knowing who they were. So
Unbeknownst to you.
and so obviously they get hired. They're working. They come in. They raid your place basically.
On a Friday morning.
Wow.
Down the sign payroll, right? So now Manny, the Portuguese guy's there. He knew. I've been lying to him for the last 3.5 years, 4 years.
He's a Portuguese.
Yeah. Hey, Bertel Matella, sure.
The plywood,
Anyway.
no good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I get out of this back elevator from obviously from the parking garage. And I get out, the door open, and I'm kind of behind all the action because there's the main elevators and then there's a service elevator from underground parking.
Yeah.
So I come out and I see all this going on, right? So I kind of try and,
Yeah.
put the collar up and kind of squeeze through all these people. And Current Affair was there. Maureen Pope.
How did they get there? How did they find out all this stuff? There was a leak. They leaked it out. Wow.
Mr. Venturo, can we ask you a question?
Yeah.
No comment.
How did they say, how do they find us their leak? Yeah, it depends.
So
Yeah.
I had done a deal on property that we leased because it was very expensive to stay down there. 18,000 square feet behind the road.
Sure.
It was a lot of money.
Oh.
So I was at Oxford Properties, I should say that. And a guy named John, I won't say any last names, and we still had, because I took a 10-year lease, and we were 3.5, 4 years in. And I went in, after this all went, I called my lawyer, he came over, everybody was gone,
But-
they took the girls away.
So, but why would they shut you down for something? Like, why was it connected to a shutdown? Because they were working there. You didn't have any knowledge of it. So, but they discovered that what you're doing was
What
illegal.
happened was the CRTC, between the CRTC and our facility where we were going to kick us out anyway. They weren't going to have a sex operation in such a prestigious building.
Because from the beginning, you didn't tell them it's going to be sex operation.
Right,
You
so-
told them it's going to be long
but you
distance.
said- but the CRT
So you did a bullshit at the beginning, and then Timentino le cornatea.
So that was discovered. But the Thelma and Louise at the end, did they get arrested for where you were? And were they were then extradited? And then,
The girls, you
but
said they took them away. Where?
Well, the feds took them away then.
The girls? Not
The
the
Thelma,
Thelma
the-
Louise, but the
Thelma
other
Louise.
the other girls.
did anybody else
They're
get
free.
charged? Or everybody?
No, nobody could be charged.
Right. So
The thing was, the two girls that were running from the U.S.
wow.
That's what.
So what do you think would have happened if they never came to work for you guys? It would have kept going.
Working. I think now. So anyway, fast forward now. My partners are back in the U.S. Not so much phone sex operations.
Yeah.
Now what they do is they have like a 30,000 square foot facility
With cameras,
Like
sure.
5 by 8 bedrooms.
Yeah.
That when the guy calls and he does camera live.
Yeah. Live. That's huge now. Live
That's
connecting.
$9 a month.
Yeah.
But in a very funny way, you jump over that subject. Because of you catch two criminali. Because of your business.
They should have given you
the
an award.
RCMP,
They should have given you an award.
CRFC, whatever
Let
they
me-
Kamikatsu,
Yeah,
they owe
should
you
have.
money.
They should have given you an award and how much money. But in the movie, they go off a cliff.
Yeah, they jump off the cliff.
But is that what really happened, or is that like that's
That's Hollywood.
that's
yeah.
Hollywood?
Yeah, that's Hollywood.
So they were arrested.
We did help them catch
Yeah, well, of course.
No.
But, so anyway, so I went into, with Oxford and I said, look, and I said, I know I got like 5.5, 6 years left on this lease. I said, we can go two ways, right? We can go quietly.
Like now?
We go very quietly, and that way we don't disrupt any of your other tenants, or your buildings,
Mm-hmm.
right? You say things start. I've never been late with my rent.
All right.
I paid you. He says, yeah, or what's the other one? I said, well, we can go to court and you can put it all out there. You guys didn't know I was running a phone sex operation.
So you did a little bit of extortion there.
Oh, I mean, I just did what comes naturally.
Well, hey, you made a negotiation.
Right.
Negotiate.
And I'm sure as a kid, now that I think back, I'm sure I negotiated that a few times. So
Yeah.
it was natural because it flowed off the end of the
Yeah.
But
Wow.
this
Anyway, he went
situation,
for the good deal.
Sure. Well, he let you out.
Did
He
and-
gave us an extra 2
But-
months to tear everything
But
down.
why? So if I guess you could have made your company on the hook for it,
Right.
and you said, "Hey, listen, this is the situation,
Negotiation.
and we're gonna back out." But wow, so now that whole business has evolved to something. It's like when I started one of the very first online with the Zen, actually, Vic. It was one of the very first online gambling sites in St. Kitts. We were in the very first.
like
Online gambling, okay? We launched the very first one in the world that you could play with your credit card. We had put the servers in St. Kitts. I was kind of the front man on it. I built the technology for it. And we got so much heat, so much flack.
Now it's everywhere.
Now the government's involved. And we went to the provincial government saying, listen, we can raise money for you. It's a tax.
Yeah.
They told us to go fuck ourselves. Anyway, that was 1990. We launched
And now, as you say that, one of the biggest revenues
is
is online.
online gambling. Of course. So we were the very first in the world ever. And we can have a whole, one day we can talk about what happened with that journey. Like I'll be the interviewer. I'll be the interviewer.
I do question.
I'll tell the story because I'll tell you, that was a journey that was crazy. And there's a whole thing that happened with that. But yeah, we were the first, we call it the royalstkits.com. It was the first online gambling. You could play with your credit card and you could play blackjack, baccarat, roulette in 1996.
That was a long time.
You see what happens? See how confused the world get? Because I remember when you talk about when you're small, you tough family, a lot of 5 sons, 1 sister, right? Not a lot of money, a lot of hunger, right? But sometimes those Italian guys, they used to play card at home, right? Tony, play card, scope.
Oh, sure, scope, yeah.
And then,
Brisca.
Brisca, 5 cents a game, But if the government, the police come inside your house, they busted you the card game because they didn't take a rake. Now the government, whoever they put to their hands,
that's the
now
thing.
it's all legal.
When they figured out,
gangster.
No, they're
yeah,
the biggest.
they're the biggest cancer.
Right.
When they figured out how to make money from it, they legalize it because now that whole phone sex turned into live streaming of girls.
34 hours a day.
Yeah,
You probably
makes millions. They're making millions of dollars. What's that one? What's that thing called? They have one OnlyFans or something. Yeah. So and they figured out how to make money out, just like online gaming.
Yeah.
They abused us so
They
bad.
can't touch them now because the girl works at her own times, her own place, in her own facility, and OnlyFans only takes a percentage of what she bills.
That's it. And they're just like a marketing front, like Open Table or Uber. Yeah, they have all these gig workers that do the work, and they just take a little piece off the top.
Look at the way it's gone, right? Like pretty much the world has legalized
Everything, drugs,
For me,
gaming,
my God.
sex, everything,
Gaming, sex,
everything.
everything.
And we were I thought, we were definitely, that guy there was an innovator. I guarantee you no one, I even have documentation, I have the original ads we ran for, no one was even thinking about gaming online like we were.
chance.
No chance. And they wiretapped my phones. They had the FBI. I was on it was crazy. They came in, it was crazy what they did. And
It's funny how
anyway,
they come for us.
they come for the
Come for
innovators.
us.
Yeah.
They take your idea.
Yeah, and then they make the money on it. Yeah,
But
I remember Tony telling me one time, 30 years ago, maybe more, we were sitting there and he said to me, I remember like it was yesterday, Tony, he said to me, pretty soon we'll be able to sit at home, and we still had those big fucking cube.
Yeah.
computer,
Yeah, of course.
IBM,
Yeah.
Weighed 900 pounds. And you said to me, pretty soon you're going to be able to click on a couple buttons, and it's going to be this worldwide web, he told me. and then I thought www worldwide.
You could buy stuff. You could buy stuff from your computer and it delivered to your house. Yeah.
I'm looking at this guy.
That was 1995.
Yeah, I'm looking at you going, what
Yeah.
is this guy talking about? There's no
Yeah. I built the world's first online shopping, Amazon basically, Shopify, what do you want to call it? And I released it. It was called Hot Flyers. I released it in probably the year before I released the online gaming site. So that would have been 96, 95. And people could post images and pictures of their product, and people could buy it online and have it delivered to your house.
Like Kijiji.
Anyway, and you know now, and I had I took a lot of heat from that. That you think that they're gonna. You think technology is gonna fossilize? Make ghost towns of shopping malls. Take a look what's happening, and fossilize small retailers. And in fact, what Amazon, one of the richest companies in the world, exactly did that. So anyway, whatever. At the end of the day,
So we got busted. They went to jail. The guys moved back to Florida, and I carried on with my
construction company. But that's crazy. So there's a whole. We could have a.
So that I call that the TSN turning point in my life.
Yeah.
Well, because it was kind of like a quick infusion of some money where I could expand my glazing company.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a personal question. Compare JVC.
Yes.
Talk straight now, okay? Never mind the bullshit.
Never
now.
crooked with you.
Okay, because Rocco know everything.
I know.
Now, because of what happened to you, they put in the newspaper the story about the sex on the phone. Did that situation in the newspaper, did it affect your other business?
Yeah, that's a good question.
No, because it was all a different company.
So you
they
didn't have a
didn't know it's
reputation collateral
So right now
damage.
you told them, now they know it's here. That's okay. Now you're famous, it doesn't matter. By the way, when this new pope get elected, the bookies in Las Vegas were taking a wreck on who's going to be the pope. They even gambling on the new pope. I wanted to say this before, because Tony make a good point. They even control the religion through gambling and sex and drugs. Even a lot of religion, they accept that too. So we got to talk the truth on this show. Otherwise,
Anyway.
Do you really think that and again, I'm a Trump fan. I'm not a big fan of the way he speaks sometimes. I'm a Trump fan. I believe his policies.
go ahead.
I love it. But do you not think that DT had something to do with electing a pope first time ever?
An American Pope from
From
Chicago.
Chicago.
Oh yeah, right, from a blue.
And let's hope.
Blue state.
Yeah.
But he is on the right side.
I hope so.
1,000%.
Who, this Pope?
I did some homework on
I hope so, because this other Pope, why is the they're all, anyway, I believe, I'm a religious guy. I believe in, I'm not a practicing Catholic, but I do believe in God. I do believe, I have my faith. But I was disappointed with this Pope's views and stuff, and and all
The one
this,
that just died.
Yeah. Anyway, I hope, because why do you have to be political, right? Like, why does the Pope have to get into the political conversation? Just practice. You have the Bible? That's the Word of God. That's it. You can't modify it, change it. That's who it is.
But they did.
That's what I'm saying.
Last administration in the Vatican.
Yeah, they did that. They wanted to. That's why that pissed me off, and it kind of.
That's why there's a problem now when you say, "Hey, you know what? Our Catholic faith is not what it used to be."
Hey, listen. The Vatican. How many immigrants? Let me ask you a question. How many refugees did the Vatican City bring into the Vatican City? How many?
Nobody.
How many refugees did the Vatican City bring in?
Nobody.
Richest organization on the planet.
How many in that gated community did they bring in? Refugee. Mavakaga, anyway.
That's the problem.
many.
But they want us to bring in, and we want us to pay for it. But how many? Anyway, that's my point,
a
right?
whole other
That's a hypocrite. Anyway, so what's the future for you? Like, what do you got coming down the pipe for you? Anything exciting?
NCAA Division I.
Nah, you, not your kids. You. What's you? We're here.
For me.
Yeah, like you personally.
Well, you know what?
You're still a young guy. Like, what's your future?
I'll tell you, my future now is just to finish and cross the finish line with a little bit of peace and some solstice in my life,
Yeah.
some good company,
Yeah.
and maybe a little bit of wine. Now that I know that when you look at your life and you say, hey, you got 2 kids, your kids are going to be looked after, they're good. You've employed a couple hundred people for how many years now? and they're going to be good.
How good?
Yeah. But are you, but still, listen, you're going to.
So for me, I think I want to, you know what I want to do? I want to wake up, and whether I want to get out on the left side of the bed or the right side of the bed, it doesn't fucking.
It doesn't, but here's the point. Here's what I'm getting at is you still have a long road ahead of you. A long road ahead of you. No, listen.
I do.
You
I
have.
want to touch on a few. I know you're getting.
Yeah. Okay.
I bought a couple of different things along the way. Burger places that I own now, that I've been here for 50 years. And you know, when you're retiring, I'm such a staple in the community that I actually bought the place. And
Keep it going.
yeah, not that it's gonna fill up my car.
No, whatever. That's so.
I don't make any money, but I get a good cheeseburger.
Yeah. So because I think if you've had success, you know, Rick Emmett said to me, you know, like once he said, you know, sometimes you have success. You have a little bit of success, you know, you have to spread it around. You have to help people, you know, manage, especially younger people, help them with their journeys and spread it around a bit. And, you know, so that was his kind of mantra, is that a word? Mantra? So, yeah. So, you know, and so to me, there's always a goal. I have a selfish kind of goal for what I want to accomplish, and not selfish, but we got to find, you know, whatever, you know, success financially I can get. My goal is to solve this diabetes problem for type 1 diabetes, whether functional cure or just to figure it out, help people that are type 1 diabetics live a better life, right? That's, if I had won the 100 million in a lottery, or I sold my company, that's what I would put most of my financial resources toward. That's me. That's what I would do.
I agree.
So and I think,
a lot of things like that.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I'm a big advocate for animal rights. Rescue dogs all over the world for the last 10 years.
good.
Fly into the islands to help shelters and build shelters and do all this stuff. I think a good friend of mine who's a very big restaurateur downtown Toronto here, she's been bugging me to open up this whole sanctuary thing for abused animals and rescues, and so I might dabble in that. And I'm just in the middle of working a deal with one of my developer buddies to put up housing for people that can't afford really to put down all the stupid money that they're asking for. So we have a piece of property was very cheap at the time, but if we can get 150, 200 different trays to maybe do it at cost, then we can.
Yeah, I mean, that one will get the trouble.
That's where I feel really good.
Yeah, you got to do things like that, but you know.
Most of our lives were like this, right?
Yeah.
Now it's like this, right?
I think, yeah.
We can help a little bit.
Yeah, but we got to be able to. I think help is in education, right? Like to educate or provide opportunity. That's why. Anyway, that's another discussion. But anyway, hey, we appreciate you coming and enjoyed. You know, we want to thank you for taking your time and hopefully help you back when we're gonna do. I want to create something called a panel. Something called a panel podcast. It's something in my brain I'm thinking about.
You go over there with a panelist.
Yeah, wall panel. You do wall paneling.
So
So a panel podcast is where we have 4 or 5 of us with one specific subject, and we have both sides in attendance, and we just fucking go for it. So I want to have you on that, a kind of panel podcast.
I'll tip up.
You know, we put the gloves on.
I'm gonna massage your back.
Yeah, rispargio, Manero Rocco.
All right. Well, thanks, and thanks for coming back. And
Thank you,
Rocco.
JVC. I remind everybody out there, you got to click on the podcast, the subscription.
Yep.
And because we love you and nobody else.
All right. Thanks for listening.